Yeah, welcome to this session. Hare Krishna, pranams to everyone, and welcome to the today's session. Let us begin this today's session of day 2 with the invocation prayers. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshidharine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Brahmana Jagaya Go Brahmana Hitayacha Jagatithaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Shurabhyai Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thanks everyone yesterday we had a wonderful talk, which is Prabhu. That is the topic called understanding the common sense approach to managing landscape with livestock, given by His Grace Madhav Prabhu. Actually, so yesterday, how Madhav Prabhu is excellently explained, holistic approach is required, in our life if we want to really success. If we want to achieve success, we need to have a holistic approach for everything. So Madhav Prabhu explained how organic matter decreases, and how it aggregates, and how it breaks down, and the causes of the increased soil erosion by air, water, and how that surface becomes compacted, and how it crusted forms, like that. And also further, he explained more about how the organic matter lost, and then how that the water, how the less storage of water happens, and less diversity of soil organism happens, and fewer, and what is that cause of the nutrients which are lacking in the plants, and the crop yields, and how much we are getting the crop yields. Crop yields also nowadays it has got reduced, and ultimately we are ending up with hunger and malnutrition. Like in the present situation, 90% of the groundwater is depleted, and we are losing 10 to 15 tons of soil every ton of that food which we produce. And also Madhav Prabhu explained, he pointed out that to produce organic food, we need at least 20 tons of compost per acre. Ultimately, he had given that message that ultimately the only solution to save our soil is our soil and our lives that needs animal impactation. So our lives and soil need the animal impactation. So that is hoof impact, grazing impact, heading impact, and dung and urine impact. All this covers actually. So now in the upcoming topics, all these topics will be wonderfully covered by will be covering by His Grace Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu. So today's topic is understanding the farm as a ecosystem. So I would like to request Dr. Sri Kumar Prabhu. So kindly please take up this session, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Open Dr. Sri Kala.
First, Dr. Sri Kala?
Yes.
Okay.
So and permit me to share the screen. Permit me to share the screen and open Dr. Sri Kala.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Hare Krishna, Dr. Shrikala Mataji, you can switch on your, enable your video. Yes.
Share screen.
Yes, Mataji, you can share your screen now.
No, my screen, my screen.
Yeah, you can share, Prabhu.
No, it is showing host disabled participant screen.
Oh, 1 minute. Yes, yes, now you can share the screen, Prabhu.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes. Now Dr. Srikala can start.
1 minute, Prabhu. I request all the participants to mute their mics, please. This is my humble request.
Dr. Srikala.
Hare Krishna. Welcome all to this session today. And today we are going to share with you the topic, how to manage our ecosystem, or how to understand or how to read the ecosystem which is surrounding us. The importance of understanding the ecosystem is that only by understanding our surroundings, what is going on there, who all are there, by understanding all this, only we can manage the ecosystem properly to make use of it. That is the importance of understanding the ecosystem. For that, what all we should understand, we will slowly go through step by step. We will make you understand how to read your ecosystem, how to live with the ecosystem. Okay, next. See, this is the veterinarian's oath, the pledge we took when we were admitted to the profession of veterinary medicine. As you know, we both are veterinarians. Myself, Dr. Srikala, and my husband, Dr. Sri Kumar. We both are veterinarians. So we are indebted to animal health and the society or the ecosystem, and how we are indebted to the ecosystem. This is explained very well in our oath. See, being admitted to the profession of veterinary medicine, I solemnly swear to use my scientific knowledge and skills for the benefit of the society through the protection of animal health and welfare. See, the animal health and their welfare is the motto of veterinary medicine, which we practice. The prevention and relief of animal suffering, the conservation of animal resources. Animal resources is a very important resource in the ecosystem. So we need to conserve the resource, so that it means that we need to save the resource. We should not diminish the resource. How to conserve the resource is, that means an animal means it should live its full lifespan. It should not be diminished in between. That is the conservation of animal resources. And the promotion of public health. By doing this, how can we promote or safeguard the public health and the advancement of medical knowledge? For doing all these things, we need to continually advance our medical knowledge. This is the first part of the oath we took while being admitted to the profession of the first day. This is a pledge we took. Next. So this is the veterinarian's context. This is our, on this platform only, we will be moving ahead. We will be working with the society. So as now we will introduce ourselves. Dr. Srikumar and Dr. Srigala. We both worked as veterinarians in the dairy cooperative in Kerala. It is called Milma there, as you call Nandini in Karnataka. We call it Milma there. We worked for a period of 1992 to 2009. This many years we were working as veterinarians in Milma. And astonishingly, we could find only 14% of our calves, because it was a dairy cooperative. We will be dealing with the collection of milk and sale of milk, all those things. So we were directly connected to the farmers who were producing milk for the union. And as part of a program, a calf care program, we understood that only 14%, that means out of 100, only 14 calves were surviving. What is happening to the rest? The rest were either died or they were not growing or something. Farmers were disposing them. Only 14 we could find, only 14 were survived. This finding was not in the context of the profession. We could understand there is no conservation of the resource. So this was not in tune with the oath we took. So we were feeling uncomfortable, and we wanted to do something inside the institution. We were not able to do anything for this purpose. So we thought we will do a project of our own. So this prompted us to put out the dairy cooperatives to look for the solution. We came out of the dairy, we resigned our job, and we wanted to start a female project, heifer project, that we will procure female calves along with their mothers, and then we will give the optimum environment for the calves to grow, female calves to grow and become good cows. And then we will impregnate the cows, and then we will give to the farmers, eligible farmers, to grow. But there was another problem. We didn't have an answer as to the fate of these cows once we sold them to the farmers. So what will happen to them? The farmers are working in the same attitude. So those cows will be culled or will be sold or abandoned once they are not giving milk. So next, what we did, we didn't have another option. We stalled the heifer project to do research on cows and bulls. Why these cows and bulls are labeled unproductive or useless. We wanted an answer for this. Otherwise, the same thing was happening in the dairy. We could have continued there. We came out to find a solution for this problem, and what we were going to do is not at all a solution for this problem. So we thought of stalling the project and doing some research to find out the actual cause for this problem. On the way, we got introduced to the holistic management principles of Alan Savory. We got associated with Eco Village Project, ISKCON, Eco Village Project of Belgaum, then Agarwal Farms, Jaipur. Still, we are continuing with, to be associated with them. We understood that from our experience, we understood that dairy and culling are both sides of single coin. Wherever dairy is there, culling is must. So we cannot separate these two, dairy business and culling These are together, both sides of a single coin. After understanding the cause of culling, we started giving awareness among farmers about the real solution of the problems in this regard. So what we are doing now is how to save the cows, how to conserve the animal resources. What are the solutions? We are giving solutions for the farmers to conserve these resources to their full term. Next. This is the Vedic indicator of quality of life. How we should live. What is the quality we should achieve by leading a life? Instructions are given in Vedas. Vedas are our manual, authentic manual. What is told in Vedas? This is the Swasti mantra. In this mantra, it is told, Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahisha gobhramanebhya shubhamastu nityam loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. We will start the meaning from the last line. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. This is our aim. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. We should see all the beings in this loka, in this universe, good in well-being of all the living beings in this universe. That is what we aim at. For that purpose, what all we need is explained in the first 3 lines. Swasti prajabhya. Praja means all living beings. Praja, who are prajas? There will be a ruler. In olden days, kings were ruling our country. Mahi, they are called Mahi Mahisha. They are called the king. Kings now, ministers were ruling. Same thing is happening. They should see all the beings under them as their prajas. And there should be well-being. They should ensure the well-being of all the prajas. For that, they should rule the earth in the right way. So it's a prayer for the rulers should rule the country in such a way that there should be well-being of all the prajas. For this, what is needed? Go and Brahmana Shubhamastu Nityam. Go Brahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam. Go first, then Brahmana. What are they doing? Brahmana will be advising or spreading knowledge, how to live, how to rule, everything will be advised by Brahmanas. So they should be protected. And what cows are doing, what is the importance of cows, that we will be going through our classes, coming up classes. So go, please note, go and Brahmana. Brahmana will be giving the knowledge how to live with, how to rule with, how to do with what, how we should do. Go ahead. That is the knowledge given by Brahmana. So they should be protected. And go, what is the importance of cow? If we are not doing, we will be going through the importance of cows. And this is important. That is told by the Swasti mantra. So may the cattle, earth, and wise men be well-being forever. May all the beings in all the worlds become happy, peace, and peace be everywhere. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. This is the meaning of Swasti mantra. So this is the Vedic indicator for the quality of life. Here, by doing this, we will be achieving that quality. Next. The context for this presentation. why you have come here, why you have joined here, what are you going to gain from this presentation. The context for this presentation is, we want, this is a generic context. Each and every one of you will be having your own context, but it may not be something very much different from this generic context. We will go through this generic context. We want stable families living peaceful life and physical security, while free to pursue our own spiritual or religious practices. We want adequate, nutritious food and clean water and air, with time for family, friends, and community, and cultural and other pursuits. We want a real education that ensures real wealth and balanced life, with balanced lives, all to be ensured for many generations to come on foundation of ethical and human behavior to practice on regenerating soils and biologically diverse platform, earth's land and in her rivers, lakes and oceans. So in this context for this our life, this is the context for the quality life we want to achieve. We want stable families for a peaceful life, physical security, all types of physical security, mental security, financial security. So we need to follow our spiritual practices. We want nutritious food, clean water, clean air, clean food, and we want entertainment, and we want time with our to spend with our families. We should have entertainment, and we want education for our children, which will ensure their quality of life. So for achieving all these things, we need a platform. That is our ecosystem. So that ecosystem should be providing us with all these requirements. So we need to know how to manage this ecosystem. Earlier we told in the what is the context of this presentation, we need to understand how to manage the ecosystem. So we will be one by one, while we are going through the topics, we will be understanding all these steps, how to manage our ecosystem to achieve this quality of life. How and why there is this disfigurement in the society. Now, are you able to achieve any of this or all of these things to lead a quality life? Are we having clean water, clean air, nutritious food, or stress-free life, good education for our children? Are we able to get this? Why? Because the society is going through many problems. We are having aims, we are making many projects to achieve many things, but there are problems everywhere. Now we are going through the disease pandemic. Why? A big issue, that elephant, it is shown in the form of elephant: hunger, malnutrition, disease, pollution, refugees, pest, land degradation, flood, drought, weeds, climate change, scarcity, conflicts, fire. All these problems are among us. And the elephant is in the room. A big issue everyone is aware of, but which is being ignored because everybody finds discussion about it uncomfortable, because we don't want to discuss all these things. We are doing something and going ahead, but the problems are also growing with us. But we don't want to discuss all those things because we don't want to be in the comfort zone, but the problems are never ending. The actual cause of problems or diseases, the problems we face are just unintended consequence of arising out of the decisions we have taken to manage the ecosystem we live in without understanding its complexity. We have never thought of the management or the resources which were provided to us. We have never thought of that it will be, if we are wrongly managing this, we will not achieve, we will not be able to solve these problems, even this disease problem. We have not, for the last 1 year, we are trying to find out the solution for this problem. But so far, our scientific community, or even all the systems, all the knowledge we are now having, is not able to answer what is the solution for this problem, because we are ignoring our ecosystem. We are whatever knowledge is there with us, how many PhDs, how many doctorates we are having, if we are ecosystem illiterate, we will not be able to achieve this quality of life. And however illiterate a person is, if he is literate in the managing the ecosystem, if he is able to read his ecosystem in which he is living, he will be enjoying this quality of life. That is the achievement we want every one of you, those who are attending this workshop, to achieve. So the cause of a disease or a problem is actually the result of the wrong decision we have taken by us. A real cure from a disease problem shall happen when the case is addressed. So the case will be addressed when the real problem will be addressed. So the cure will happen. Next. Next slide, please. So the paradigms influence on decision making. So why people are taking such wrong decisions? Because each decision is taken on the basis of a paradigm set. So the paradigm is set, and the decision will be based on that paradigm. So if we are not changing the paradigm, then the decision will be the same. We take a lot of decision on a day to meet a need or a desire or to solve a problem. These are the decisions we take in our day-to-day life to meet a need or a desire to solve a problem. Our decisions are based on or influenced by our paradigms, that we have set some paradigms. So on that paradigm only we will be standing and taking the decisions. Unintended consequences shall arise if we are not in line with our context. We should always remember our context, and if we are not in tune with the context, unintended consequences will be the result. To solve these unintended consequences, we need to shift from the paradigm that influence the decision. So paradigm shift should be happening to change the results. This is what we need to do. Next. So what is a paradigm? What is paradigm? We have heard many. Paradigm is the way you see something, or your point of view or frame of reference, or a decision or a background we make for our life, that we are standing on that paradigm, some beliefs, some thoughts that we have already set. This is paradigm. Paradigm you have influence your decisions. So we will be taking every decisions based on our paradigms or the set paradigms. So this is an example, this is an experiment to show how these paradigms are made. A group of scientists placed 5 monkeys in a cage, and in the middle, a ladder with bananas on top. You can see a ladder, top, there are bananas, and 5 monkeys are there. Next. So every time a monkey will be going to take the banana. Every time a monkey went up the ladder, scientists soaked the rest of the monkeys with cold shower. So what happened? We'll see the next slide. So after some time, so what will happen? This monkey which is going up, other monkeys thought, because this monkey is going up to take the banana, we are getting a cold shower. So what they did, they started beating this monkey. So later, no monkey will dare to go up the ladder regardless of the temptation. Why? If they go up, they will get beating. So scientists then decided to substitute one of the monkeys. They removed one monkey and introduced a new monkey. This monkey was not knowing what is happening here. But the first thing this new monkey did was to go up the ladder to get the banana. Immediately, the other monkey started beating. There was no cold shower. Even then, those monkeys were trained. They should not go there. And they started beating the new monkey. And the new monkey was not knowing why these monkeys are beating me. So he also left the venture of taking the banana. Like this, all the old monkeys were replaced by the new monkeys, but they were not getting in. They never got the cold shower. Even then, they understood that they should not go and get the bananas. This is, I hope you understood, this is how paradigms are fixed in every aspect. So sometimes something might have happened and some things were followed and we are following the same thing, even if why we are not knowing why we are doing this. So every time when a monkey went up the ladder, the others beat up the so never let your education limit you from learning new things. This is what we should learn from this. If it was possible to ask the monkeys, if we were able to ask the monkeys, why they would beat up all those who attempted, why you are beating the monkeys which are going to do, why they should go and get the banana, why you are beating? They will answer like this, I don't know. That is how things are done here. They don't know why, but we are doing. That is how we are also following many things. We don't know why we are following, but we are following something. So we are not trying to come out of this paradigm and think. That is the problem. Never let, that is how this we are trained by our education system, our beliefs. This is how paradigms are fixed in the society in every aspect. So never let your education limit you from learning new things. So we should try to be aware of your paradigms, but try to learn new things and try to do some research. Then only we will get the bananas. Next. We are beings in the nature. There are no parts in nature. Nature cannot be divided into parts because the creator was so intelligent that he made this jigsaw puzzle. If you remove a thing from the nature, no replacement. Nature cannot be divided in parts. Each and every part is integrated to it. So we are also a part of nature. Means a being in the nature. We are like other beings. We are also present in the nature. No room for competition or neglect. We cannot compete with anything in nature, or we cannot neglect or ignore any part in nature. But what we are thinking, we are everything is for us. It is anthropocentric. We are doing everything. Everything is for us. All decisions we make do not consider the well-being of other species, plants or animals. We are not considering their well-being. We are thinking about our well-being only. That is anthropocentric. Nature is not anthropocentric. Nature, in nature, we are also a being like other beings. So this is first one is human doing. We are thinking we are doing everything. In next, actually what it is, we are only human being. When we think like this, we are also a being in this universe, and all other beings are having their role or their they are also they have also got a position that, like same thing, we are also having a position. If we are thinking us equal to other beings, then only we will become a human being. Otherwise we are not human beings, we are human doing only. So all decisions we make should consider simultaneously consider the well-being of all other species. That is the change we should make within us. We are not human doing, we are human being. This is reinforced by Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 27th sloka. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vikmudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul understands the influence of the three under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the to be doing all these activities which are in which are in actually out of his by nature. So I'm not able to see the this. How can I move this? Sorry. Okay. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities. So Vimudhatma, he is a fool. He is understanding, he is doing everything, which are in actuality carried out by the nature. By the nature is carrying out everything, and but the only one being only one being in this full nature, he is thinking he is doing everything. That is his foolishness. That is reinforced by this sloka. So introductory verse for Upanishads of the Taittiriya Samhita of Yajurveda. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. What is the meaning of this introductory sloka? Let us be together. Let us eat together. Let us be vital together, virya. Let us be radiating truth, radiating the light of life. Never shall we denounce anyone. Never entertain negativity. This is the beginning of our knowledge. So what we are doing, we are not following this. If we are following this, we will be seeing everything equal. There is no up and no downs. Everybody has got its own importance. Every creature is having its own importance. Rigveda 10:19 1/2-4 191 2-4 verses. The world is my family. This is called, we have heard about this, Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Go together, speak together, know your minds to be functioning from a common source. It is the same manner as the impulses of creative intelligence in the beginning remain together, united near the source. Integrated is the expression of knowledge. As assembly is significant in unity, united are their minds in the silent dynamism of all possibilities. United be your purpose, harmonious be your feelings, collected be your mind, in the same way as all the various aspects of the universe exist in togetherness, wholeness. So we are one family, all the living beings. There are no parts which is negligible in nature. This is the meaning of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. So we need to shift our paradigm. What is the need for shifting paradigm? Human, from human doing to human being. Be a human being. If we are not shifting, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So our problems are due to our paradigms. So if you want to solve the problem, you need to shift the paradigm. That should be our aim. For this purpose, what we should do, we will be learning through the coming sessions. Hare Krishna. From this point onwards, I will hand over the mic to Dr. Srikumar. He will be continuing with the next slides. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible. Yes, sir,
Yes,
audible.
okay.
Audible,
Okay.
sir.
Yes.
So,
Don't please mute.
so we from what Dr. Srikala has been saying, that we miserably need a paradigm shift, because here what Einstein is saying is, with the same thinking we used when we created them. What is that thinking? That's the paradigm we had. Similarly, we have many other paradigms. See, the protein paradigm. That is, we have been told that protein is so important, as if no other things are important. We forgot the wholeness of a food. Now we are after protein. That is why many this value-added products now, Horlicks, Bournvita, and all, because they are marketing the protein. So when they need only say this particular product has protein, that product is sold because of the protein paradigm. We have so much faith in the proteins. The other one is the farmer paradigm. That is, I'm a consumer and the farmer is another person who is someone else, and he has to grow for me, as if we have no role as a farmer. Every person who eats is a farmer, because our taste also influences farming. So we are not a separate thing from farming. That is why the topic is seeing the farm as an ecosystem. We are a being in the ecosystem. So when we are a being in the ecosystem, what's the difference between a farmer and a farm? Both are the same. The farm is having all the beings, and we are a being in the farm. Then why should there be a separate person called a farmer? So that farmer paradigm, the germ theory paradigm, that is everything. All the beings in the ecosystem are the resources for the ecosystem. So how can there be that one bacteria is the cause of the problem here? It cannot be. They're all resources for the system. Fertilizer paradigm, that when a plant grows, it is taking away nutrients from the soil, so we have to put some inputs, otherwise it cannot grow. So that means that gave rise to the fertilizer paradigm. So we are now busy, some fertilizer has to be put in farming. Then the pest paradigm. The insects have been subclassified as pest, which comes and attacks. We do not know the function of the insects. That is why we have blamed them as pest. So then the pesticide industry came. That's called the pest paradigm. Weed paradigm means what the function of all the plants are the same, but still we call certain plants as weeds, because we see that is of no use for us. So we call it weeds. Whom have we called the weeds? The plants only. If they believe in agriculture, in Ayurveda, can you say one Ayurvedic medicine that does not contain any weeds? All the Ayurvedic medicines are made from weeds only. So that is how another beat thinking beat paradigm. We have to kill all the beats. Then the value added product paradigm. You know, an apple, we have been made to believe that the apple juice is having more nutrients than the apple. How can you add any more nutrients once you have plucked the apple from the apple tree? There's no way out. The plant only can give the maximum nutrients. Now we are saying that we have made a product, apple juice, which is having more nutrients. How can we add nutrients? What have we added? We can only reduce the nutrient, denature it, but we cannot increase nutrients. What is the value we have added? It is a value in the price. Not any value has been added nutritiously to any of the products you make from the nature's produce. So these are all the other paradigms which which decide or which is influencing any decision that you make in our day-to-day life. So then we should know what is the paradigm that we should be having. All these paradigms, that's as Dr. Srigaran told, we have to go in for, we have to question whatever beliefs or whatever we have, we have to see, use our common sense. Is that right? So that has to be there, not just simply follow, say, naming it as tradition. It needn't be the right thing. So which is the universal paradigm that we are supposed to believe as per the Vedas? It is the Vedic paradigm is what is told in the Ishopanishad invocation. There is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. The meaning is that the personality of God is perfect and complete, and whatever He has made is also as perfect as He is. And He is completely perfect. All emanations from Him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. You look at that top, I've made a circle. No? Each small circle you see in the bigger circle is each species or each being. And they all form a function for the bigger whole. Each whole, each small species in the bigger whole is also whole in itself. And that is also perfect. That is how He has told. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. That is, there are certain peculiarities that we find from this Vedic paradigm. That is, Purnamadam Purnamidam. He is perfect, and what He has made is also perfect. What are the specifications of what specific things that you can gather from this paradigm is, the highlights of this paradigm are, it is syntropic. Syntropic means the more you grow, the more fertile it becomes. Now we are made to believe that the more you grow, the soil gets depleted. But this paradigm teaches us, by growing a plant, you don't use anything. That is, the syntropic means the more you grow, that whatever you do, it increases the resources. The opposite of syntropy is entropy. That means that whatever you do, that the conventional agriculture that we follow is entropy, because the more you grow, the more the soil is depleting or desertifying. But in syntropic, the more you grow, the more resources it generates and the fertility it generates. Increasing population doesn't deplete the resources in the ecosystem. Now we are made to believe that if the population increases, there will be scarcity. No, this system, this Vedic paradigm says that will never happen. The resources are available at the site. No need for any inventions. That is, all the resources are needed. See, even for agriculture also, the resources that we need is sunlight, air, and soil. It is everywhere. Do we have to bring sunlight to a different area? There is no need. These are the main resources needed for farming. That we will come in the coming sessions, you will understand more. That is the peculiarity of this paradigm. We needn't import anything or even invent anything. There is no need for invention, only discoveries. No difference between farm and farmer, as we are a being in the farm, that I told previously. There are no parts in nature. Each species is something that is simultaneously a whole in and of itself, as well as a part of the larger whole. That is the main thing. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. These are the highlights of this paradigm. This stands opposite to the paradigms we have now. This is the Vedic paradigm, or this is the paradigm the Lord has set for us. And there is a manual also, the way we have to behave. That is the humane way we have to behave as a human being. So complicated versus complex. That is, all the technological inventions are man-made. Whatever inventions that we have made, it is man-made. It's a connection of parts, and hence damage of one part leads to stoppage of the equipment. That is, if you have a radio, or at least this particular program, if the power goes finished, no, that is, you have a template, and depending on the template, you have joined the parts, and if any part goes, that equipment stops. Then you need an expert to come and rectify. That is why it is called complicated. But nature is not man-made. We are just managing or orchestrating it. Even by wrongdoing, it doesn't stop functioning. Instead, it self-organizes and keeps functioning. Even though if you have sprayed a chemical on an insect, the insect may die, but still the nature doesn't stop. It self-organizes. So there may be some unintended consequence, but the system will go on. But whatever we have made, any part goes wrong, finished. But you can correct it. Immediately, if you change the part, it starts to function. That is complicated, and this is complex. Complex means you do not know how it works. We are only just orchestrating it. But discovering and trying to orchestrate it. Anything you do, it still keeps on functioning. Even an institution is also a complex thing. Even if the chairman dies, still another chairman will come and the company will go on. Which means nature is not to be managed in parts, but as a whole. Hence, there is no room for competition in nature because we are a being in nature. So this is what we call holistic management. That is, it is a decision-making process. We discussed earlier that any problem that if it has to be solved, we have to address the cause. So what is the cause that we have now learned? It is the decision that we made. That is the cause. So and these decisions are influenced by the paradigms we have. And by changing the paradigm, our decision also becomes correct and the cause will be removed. That is how it is. So holistic management is a decision-making process, or nischaya buddhi, making process that enables us to simultaneously consider the economic, environment, and the social aspects in order to reduce unintended consequences while trying to achieve the quality of life you want to live in. At the same time, any decision that you're taking, it should address your context. That is, with the social aspect, the economic aspect, as well as the environmental aspect. For example, just imagine you want to spray, you have cockroaches in your house, and it's a problem for you now. So now what will you think? Oh, I will have to kill it. What is the thing I can purchase to kill the cockroach? It is in no way, it's economically, you have to purchase something. That is money involved. Environment, you are spraying a chemical here. Socially also, you are destroying the whole system here. So then that doesn't work. So what is the option that you can do? So you should understand what is the function of the cockroach in our system, in this system, because it is also a being in this ecosystem. So then we should come to know, we should do the research, and then we should find out that in China, they are growing their, these cockroaches in a big numbers to manage the kitchen waste. They're growing, it's in a factory, and they bring the kitchen waste and dump it there. And these cockroaches eat the chicken waste and they convert it. So then from that, we should understand, why is it that the cockroach is finding some space there? The cockroach didn't bring the house. The cockroach came to the house. So it is a garbage that brought the cockroach there. Cockroach didn't bring the garbage. So we should understand that the solution, holistically managing it, that doesn't affect the economic side or environment side or social, to keep the house clean. That way we should manage the kitchen waste properly. So every aspect, if you really analyze, you'll get an answer how to manage it holistically, considering, not just considering, simultaneously considering these three things when you take a decision. And every decision should be in tune with the context that we have told before, generic context. It should be for the quality of life that we are taking a decision. And if it affects the quality of life, we should review the decision and try to take a new decision so that the unintended consequences can get reduced. So to understand, see that particular circle, you see There are different species, and each species has a function. So only when you know what is the difference between function and utility, you will be able to work for the whole as a being. So what's the difference? What's the function? It's a purpose of a person or thing or an activity that is natural. That is, what is the purpose of each species in this whole ecosystem that we should know? What is the utility? Utility is what we have fixed on it. The state of being useful, profitable, or beneficial. How is this thing beneficial for me? That is the human doing. Function is as a human being that you are trying to know the function of each species. For example, see, the coconut, it has a husk. So what is the function of that husk? People say, many have answered, it is to make coir. Coir is the utility of the husk. It is not the function of the husk. From the picture, you can understand the function of the husk is it will float in water, and that it helps in the propagation of the seed. It will be taken to another shore where it starts to grow. So what does this mean? This particular thing, plant, the mode of propagation is through water, seawater. So where is this particular plant supposed to be seen growing? The seashore. You see, all over the seashore, you see coconuts growing. Once you have understood this function, you will never plant this in the desert or in the dry areas of India. What is happening is we are removing the tree that is there, which is like, in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu, you have that palm tree. We are removing that palm tree. In Andhra, I think there is a law, but in Kerala, what we see is they are removing the palm tree and planting the coconut tree. The palm tree has the ability to store 10,000 liters of water in every rain. This coconut tree needs 10,000 liters to grow. That is why it is kept near the water. So we should know the function of that thing. Then only we will know where should I plant this. Otherwise, you will disturb the ecosystem. So like this, we know there's a function for this husk. Likewise, each species has a function. See, these birds, they also have a function. See, look what it is doing. It is scratching the ground, pecking the seeds or any insect that is there. And by scratching the ground, they are promoting aeration of the soil. They predate insects. See, if a bird like this functions on our landscapes, you will never have a tick attack for our cows. They will control the ticks. So that is when you miss this particular bird, you see the ticks coming into our cows that we keep. So that there's a function for this. And they are excellent seed dispersers. You see in many fruits, you can see they have made a hole, and they make through the hole, they get the seeds. And in their digestive system, there is an organ called gizzard, which it's like a mixer grinder. It grinds the seeds. Because even though they eat the seed, you don't see the seed in the stool. But some seeds, they cannot grind. Those seeds, they are the seeders. Other seeds, that's food for them. So by eating a seed, they go somewhere and put the stool, and another tree starts to grow there. That is their function. Do seeding of plants. And just imagine so many birds in your farm, how much organic nitrogen. See, it is a urea farm only, they pass the stool. So how much organic nitrogen is put to the soil, given to the soil life. So this is the function of this animal. Meat is the utility of this animal. So the same way as we understood about the coconut husk, this bird, my question is, what is the function of a cow? And what is the utility of the cow? The swadharma of the cow, the primary function of the cow, is its inborn quality of grazing. That is what it will do if you leave it free. That is its way of life. Same as the bird. That is what the bird will do when you leave it alone. When a calf is born, immediately, without going to any university itself, it will stand up and go to the udder to drink the milk. That it knows. That is where I have to go. And the mother knows that I have to feed the calf. So the same with the primary function of the cow is its inborn ability of grazing, and the primary function of the udder is to feed the calf. The primary utility that we fixed on the cow is for milk, and for the bull is for traction. So if what we need to do understand is, we can use an animal or the other species for our utility, but that utility should be their function. See, for you have a pen with you. The pen, the purpose of making that pen is to write. Suppose you have an itching on the head. You can use the pen, this pen I can use to scratch my head. But you don't purchase a pen to scratch your head. That is the utility part. You may use it, but that is the utility. So even though you scratch the head, you're using the pen for writing. So it is the function that comes first. That is how you have to differentiate. So the cow or the bull, if you use them for milk, taking milk, or if you are using them for traction, they should have performed their function of grazing. That should be the first thing that they should do. If that is not done, whichever animal you take with you, whichever thing you do, it will be a liability for you. Utility should come only after the function. Land and cow care or both should be the same. When a natural resource is not used for its function, it leads to the diminishing of the said resource and hence unsustainable. So let us see. We have classified the utility of cows for either draught purpose, the bulls, or milk. If this was the function, then they wouldn't have reached the garbage. Now they are in the garbage. We call them as culling. It is not of any use. They are not unproductive. So what happens? See, on the left side, you see there is a black and white cow, which is a Videshi cow, and you see the Gir cows also. By changing from the Videshi to Deshi also, what is the change that has happened in their quality of life? They are still eating from the garbage. Because why? We saw them for their utility. We didn't see them for their functions. And see the other side, they are with the pigs in the garbage. So that means since the utility fixed is not their function, they end up in the garbage. This happens to any thing that we manage, not only for cows. So to understand the real function of the cows, I would call your attention to Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 17th chapter, 3rd verse. The bitter expression of Kali on the cows are cited here. Although the cow is beneficial, it's very important. Although the cow is beneficial, because one can draw religious principles from it. So what is it that the cow is going to give you? The benefit of the cow for you as a human being is it gives you religious principles. But she is now rendered poor and calfless. So the first thing that she's seeing is she's rendered poor and calfless. So now one problem that she's facing in Kali is she's calfless. Her calf is removed from her. 2, her legs were being beaten by an uncivilized. For what? To draw the milk. So that means the owner of the cow doesn't know for what this animal is. So he has separated the calf and he is milking the cow. There were tears in her eyes and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. So what is it that she was hankering for? She was hankering for some grass in the field. That is, she was hankering to graze, because that is her function. So the owner of the cow doesn't know the function of the cow. So he has kept them in the Go Shauchalaya, where it is living with its stool, and he is milking the cow, and he has separated the calf. And she's looking at the grass and the calf, and she's crying. She's not able to serve the calf nor the ecosystem, because her function is to graze. This particular thing is still going on. Calves are separated from their mothers. Calves are separated from their land and are stall fed in Go Shauchalayas. Cows not taken care by the civilized. It is still going on. Even this particular moment, this is going on. No changes happen to this. Only when these 3 abuses are addressed can we expect the cows to be happy and any project with the cows to be sustainable. If we use them for their functions, it is a very profitable thing to do. So what is it that Vedas say? What will happen to you? If the Vedas says that they are crying if the calf is separated, then they should say what will happen if the calf is separated. In this particular Atharvaveda sloga and the Rig Veda, it is mentioned in both the pulas. It says, milk derived forcefully from a cow that is by separating the calf, it's poisonous and leads to innumerable, incurable diseases. That means the milk that you drink, whether it is in the form of paneer or ghee or whatever it is, if it is from a cow that has been separated from a calf, that milk is poison. So there are only certain places in Vedas where the milk is cited to be poisonous. This is one, by separating the cow. Now let us see what will happen if you separate the cow from the grass. Barriers in pastures angers the cows. The milk from such cows is also likened to poison. So if you separate the calf or the grazing land from the cow, that milk is poisonous and it can lead to innumerable, incurable diseases. And then what will happen if you keep them in confinement? In confinement means in the go shauchalayas. What will happen? Such a person and society that keeps its cow in confinement in their homes suffer fall from grace of learned people and gods. That is, the Lord will not be happy with you. That grace you will not receive. And not only learned people, the gurus also will not be happy with you. Your guru or the Brahmana society or these people with voice, they will also be not happy with you. So there also another hit you are getting on your head. And then consequence of farming with cows. Now, if you ask anyone in organic farming, what they say is, I farm with dung. I'm doing cow-based farming. That is not cow-based farming. Cow-based farming is when you use the cow for farming, not the dung. When you are using the dung for farming and the cow is in the go shauchalaya, you are doing dung-based farming. And what is it told here? Those ill-advised, that is the ones who are ill-advised, means keeping the cows in the go shauchalaya and only taking their dung, or in some cases urine also. That is, what will happen to them is, those ill-advised who do not devote their time and labor for utilizing the family cows and utilizing the family cows and cultivate organic crops, they suffer through pest, insects, disease thrown by Rudra. Rudra is supposed to be controlling the insect population. So he will not be happy because you have kept them in the go shauchalaya and you are trying to farm only with dung. That is, you are seeing only the utility part. So you will see pest attack. What is it that you use to make see, my wife always said, don't say you, it is we. Please don't misunderstand me when I say what you do. What I mean is I am also part of it. So what is it that we will do when we see a pest in our farm? If you want to do it in an organic way, we will use the cow urine only. See, when you send the cow to the farmland, the urine and cow dung falls there. That is what Rudra wants. Otherwise, you will have good time with the insects. So what is the mistake we do in that we have removed them from the habitat. From grazing, we have brought them to the go shauchalaya. For what? Just for their utility. And it is like, see, if you take a fish from the water, it cannot survive. That's exactly what is happening to the cows. If you remove them from their function of grazing, it is their death. That thing will not function. It will be a big liability for you. And removing a cow or the grazers from the grasslands, that is also very dangerous for the grassland. So like a fish is removed from its habitat, we remove the cow from grasslands to do factory farming. The grasslands, what has happened? They are becoming deserts. Fruits and vegetables have gone low in nutrients. And what is happening to the cow? They are being culled or named unproductive. So human activity of putting such a strain on the natural functions of any species in our ecosystem should no longer be taken for granted. You cannot continue doing this to the species. It is because we are a being in the system. Anything you do, who is going to get affected? All the beings will affect. We are also going to get affected as an unintended consequence because we are supposed to behave as a human being, not a human doing. So in Vishnu Purana it says that Kali Yuga cows will be honored as long as they deliver milk. If they are not giving milk, this is where they will reach. They will be culled and ill-treated, starved in different places. We have many goshalas which are harboring all these culled cows. And it's a burden for them because how can you take? Their function is to graze. Even if you make a concrete, floor, shauchalaya with marble also, the suffering is same for them. If they need a grazing land, they don't want any of our structures. They do not want us to do something as a human doing. They want us to behave as a human being. As a being, they want us to do. See, this is what is happening. The cow shelters are getting flooded and they are suffering. So wrong decisions and their unintended consequences are still going on. So continuing to do the same thing is insanity. How can you expect a different result by continuing to? If any one of you wants to start a Goshala, and if you are going to continue the same thing, how are you going to get a different result? You will get the same result the other person will. That means you will have to change the way you see things. Paradigm shift from utility to function is the need of the hour. Human doing to human being. We have to behave as a human being, not doing. See, some differences between the human doing and being is the mindset of a human doing is, see, it is only a consciousness difference. It's not that the human doing has some horns on his head or anything. No, it is just a consciousness difference. What is his mindset? Reductions. Decisions are taken to satisfy the need and desires and to solve the problem of just one species. When I told this in one seminar, they told, see, we are keeping dogs. Okay, yes, you are keeping dogs for your satisfaction. It is not for the satisfaction of the dog. We are keeping cows. Yes, you are keeping the cow because you want milk. It is for your satisfaction, not for them. That is you are managing. Even if you keep an animal, it is to satisfy the indriya vishaya for us. It is not for that animal that you are protecting. That, I mean, the human doing is protected. But as far as the human being is concerned, it is a holistic decisions are taken simultaneously to satisfy the need. See, when he does it, he sees that it satisfies the need, desires, and to solve the problems of all the species. If I am deciding I want to take milk, I am seeing that the cow grazes. And from the grazing land, what she grazes, she is giving me the milk. And I see that the calf is also with the cow. So then what is the problem? I am also getting milk and the calf is also getting milk and the system is in place. So then comes the fertilizers. How does it? The human doing things that the plants deplete the soil and then soil has to be fertilized after every cropping. That is how a human being. I have to do something. Everything it is, I have to do something. But as far as human being is concerned, plants add fertility to the soil by photosynthesis during the growing phase. The return of biomass residue after harvest completes the mineral cycle. That is how the human being thinks. It's nothing for me to do. The nature has made a system because you know the paradigm. Purnamadam, Purnamidam. I needn't invent anything. It is there. Our duty in the form of education is to understand or discover what is it the system that the Lord has made to make the complete thing function. Insects reduce the yield by damaging the crop. That is the human. I have to do something. Today I have to kill that pest. That is how we wake up. But as far as the human being is concerned, function as insects to clear the garbage. And in the insects, if you see them as a pest, they haven't brought the garbage. They have come to the garbage. So if you see they have come to your plants for something, we need to understand that that plant that is growing there will be a garbage for you because the plant is not healthy. That is how the human being thinks. Weeds reduce the yield by competing with the desired crop, deplete soil its fertility. That's what they think about the weeds. But the human being will think function it functions as a plant to photosynthesize and pump fertility to the soil, which you will learn more in the next coming class, and adds organic material on the top of the growth. That is how the human being sees a plant, whether it is named a weed or a crop. Results, how he sees the results. Entropic, that is, the more you grow, it leads to desertification or the soil fertility goes. But in the human being things, the more I grow, the more fertile the land should become. That is how he has made the system. He didn't make a system that wherein there will be depletion. It is only addition that will happen. So this is how a human doing consciousness is and the human being conscious. What is expected of us is what you read on the human being side. Nature functions in whole. It's a complexity of nature. We are yet to discover many things. So the basic principle is that we cannot manage nature by parts. We are all beings Every 84 lakh species are beings in the system. We cannot and should not manage plants in isolation from the soil they grow in or in isolation from the animals that graze them. Both are needed. All species or beings in nature are designed to function with the whole in center. Decision taken, the whole in the center means with the Lord in center. That is the meaning that is to be taken. Decision taken without considering the context and the complexity of nature leads to unintended consequences. In this, I'm sharing a video. I hope I'll on it now. The question that is asked is, what is desertification? So this video will teach you what is desertification. Are the decisions we make to meet, this is an important statement I'm making. Are the decisions we make to meet our needs, desires, or to solve our problems leading to more bare soil? That is a very indicator to understand whether my decision is holistic or not. Will your decision that you have taken for anything in your life, will that end up creating a bare soil? Now we will see the video. Hope it is audible.
No, Prabhu, it is not audible.
Yeah, it is not audible, Prabhu.
Oh,
You have to share sound.
okay. Thank you. So I would like to
go to options and share.
Yes, I will. That means I will have to go back, no? Stop share.
Yes.
And then share.
Yes.
Share computer sound. Yes. Yes. Okay. Now sound is there?
Yes, it's audible.
Yes, sir.
Soil,
Please.
Yes, sir.
the plant, and the climate are connected. If you don't have a living plant, you're going to have more evaporation. What we want is transpiration. When the moisture leaves through the plant, when it does that, it increases humidity, and when it increases the humidity, we have more rain. 60% of our rainfall comes from the ocean. But a lot of people don't realize 40% comes from small water cycles where our rain comes from inland. What's going on is we disrupted the small water cycles. That's when you have too much sensible heat coming off bare soil. You're having these huge vortexes of hot air going out. Instead of attracting the rain, it's pushing the rain clouds away.
Take 1 square meter of soil and make it bare, and I promise you, you will find it much colder at dawn and much hotter at midday than that same piece of ground if it's just covered with plant litter. You have changed the microclimate. Now, by the time you are doing that on more than half the world's land, you are changing macroclimate.
Desertification of our soils is a pressing threat to our climate and our species.
But I have for you a very simple message. About 2/3 of the world is desertifying.
As soils turn to dust around the world, every year 40 million people are pushed off their land. By 2050, it's estimated that 1 billion people will be refugees of soil desertification.
More than 20 civilizations in all regions of the world have failed because of agriculture damaging the environment. Their communities could not handle the deteriorating environment, and the rising population. Globally, that's what we're doing today. Poor land leads to poor people. Poor people leads to social breakdown. Poor land leads to increasing frequency of floods and droughts, mass emigration across borders and into cities, and it's leading to ideal recruitment conditions.
What we know right now is the way we're feeding ourselves is undermining the very ecology that we're dependent upon. So the long-term prognosis for our survival on this planet, given business as usual, is very, very poor.
According to the United Nations, the world's remaining topsoil will be gone within 60 years. In other words, unless we find a way to save our soils, we have 60 harvests left.
So, creation of bare soil. That is, how did a bare soil come? It is because of the decision we have taken. It is not that it simply became bare, or it is not that desertification simply happened. It is an unintended consequence of a decision that we have taken that led to the creation of a bare soil. So the cause is not the rainfall, the results, or any resource that we have. It is our decision. So what will happen in such a cases? Then if a decision that is you are taking is leading to creation of a bare soil, then without doubt this elephant is in our living room. All these problems that you see, we will have to face it. There is no other option for it. So what is the function of a farmer then? So we have seen the function of a cow. Likewise, what is the function of a farmer? Because the topic is we are seeing the farm as an ecosystem. Like the driver knows the function of each parts, and then he orchestrates that each parts and he drives the car. The same way the farmer also should be knowing the function of, as he is a being in that farm, he should know the function, discover, learn from others, the function of all the beings. See, now, if I ask anyone, what is it that you are farming? Whom more are you feeding there? You will say, I have myself, my wife, my 2 children, and have few cows. That is what I am doing. No, we should start to see the full life there. 1 teaspoon of soil as more organisms that you have than the people in this world. 1 spoon. Likewise, each part, each leaf has more. Every part, each gram of the whole thing. So just imagine, what are you seeing? There is a lot more to see. Not just the thing that you see, the human beings there or the few animals you have. We are responsible as a being to feed all of them. And we should know that each speck has a lot of living beings in the air, in the soil, in the plant, in the bark, in the juice, in the fruit, everywhere, and they have specific functions. They are all the resources that we have. And it is the responsibility of, as an owner of the farm, to see that they are all fed. For that, we need to behave as a human being. So the function of a farmer is to manage or managing or orchestrating the functions of all the living beings and other natural resources to achieve abundance without depleting the resource. That is, the decision should be in tune with the context. So some words that we are using here, we should know the real, even the holistic terms, the meaning is different. Biodiversity means all the life forms moving and not moving in our landscape. Everything that moves and does not move, but it is having life. Everything that is having life in your farm is what is called the biodiversity. Different types of plants, bacteria, virus, protozoa, worms, everything that comes. Livestock means all moving life forms in our landscape, excluding the bleeding, the plants. All the other things are movable, and they form the livestock in your farm. In the reductionist thing, it is only the animals that you farm. Livestock means the cows, goats. No, we are seeing many things. In the rumen, that is the main digestive tract of the cow, one drop of the fluid in that rumen has 10,000 times more bacteria or life than there is life on this earth. That is the human beings. That much is there. So just imagine, we are nothing, outnumbered in weight and in numbers. Wealth is the natural resources. See, here in this farming system, and with this this particular context that we have and the paradigm we have, wealth is defined as the natural resources available to us, the homes that shelter us, and the closeness of our ties with one another. How we behave and the house that we live in is a wealth, and the natural resources we have. That is what wealth means in this holistic management. So we are all beings that constitute the biodiversity in the environment that sustains us. You see, in there you see a human figure there. Everywhere there is life. That is how we have to see. We shouldn't live to kill them. We should learn to live with them. There is life above the soil and there is life below the soil. All these constitute your farm. And it is, as an owner, it is your responsibility. You are one of the beings in this farm. And if you manage the farm like this, as an ecosystem, then naturally you know your functions and you will never fail. Once you understand that this is the characteristics of a nature's farming, that is, Mother Earth never attempts to farm without livestock. You know what livestock is. Livestock is everything that moves in your farm. So without that, the nature doesn't farm. It raises mixed crops, biodiversity is there, different things. Different species it raises. Preserves the soil. No soil erosion will be there from in nature. Process of growth and decay balance one another. Mixed animal and vegetable are converted to humus. There is no waste in nature. Greatest care is taken to store the rainfall. The rainfall in nature is effective. We will learn what effective rainfall is in tomorrow's session. So considering these factors, and to get, you learned from that video that it is only 60 more harvests before us. Understanding that people have changed now, and a system has come up called the regenerative agriculture. I'm not a spokesman of regenerative agriculture, but we are just telling you there are certain principles that are being followed. The principles to farm with livestock. That is what we are telling. That is the least disturbance of the soil. You understood from Madhu Prabhu's class, and you will know more in tomorrow's session. We need to reduce the tillage, especially with metals, living root all over the time, and tomorrow you will learn what is meant by that in a living root 365 days. Soil armor, that means it should be always covered. Soil should always be covered. Animal integration, this is where the role of animals come. What is their function in the ecosystem, and increased biodiversity. So this system is coming up. So there is hope for us. It is not a doomsday talk. We have hope, and in the coming sessions we will try to follow all these principles. So thank you for this. With that, the summary of this is, today's presentation is from human being, that is utility. So sorry, from human doing, that is the utility consciousness, we have to come to the human being. That is, we are a being in the system, that function should be seen. With one happy news is that without agriculture, it is not possible to have a city, stock market, banks, university, church, or army. Agriculture is the foundation of civilization and stable economy, as was told by Alan Savory. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That is, a paradigm change can save us from all the problems we have, because that will change the way we take decisions. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think if there is time, we can go in for discussions. I'm passing it to Vasudhama Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for enlightening us with the topic. Yes, we have thank you for revealing us what is the function of the cows and what is the function of the land and what is the function of the farmers and how all are like synced with together. So that is really a wonderful talk given by our Dr. Shrikala Mataji and Dr. Shiv Kumar Prabhu. And also today, I could see a special guest today, Deepti Mataji. Welcome, Deepti Mataji, because Mataji, she's practically doing this cow-based farming at Jaipur, where she is managing the, actually addressing the functions of cows, functions of land, and so many other things. Actually, Mataji is very inspiring to us, actually. Welcome, Mataji.
Thank you so much. I appreciate what you're doing here. And Dr. Sab, your talk was very inspiring.
Thank you, Mataji.
So now we will take up the question and answer session. We will accept only 5 questions as of now. So remaining, if anybody has any questions, they can write an email to us, that is help@dirttosoil.org. If they can raise their hands, and we can I will unlock their hands. Yeah. First with Jagannath Mohan Prabhu. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for explaining very nicely the difference between Goshala and Go Shauchalya. So Prabhuji, while you were delivering the lecture, I was remembering about my hometown. It's in Uttarakhand, so we have terrace farming over there. Currently, I am residing in Delhi. So they used to have one space for where the cows will be coming at night and staying. In the daytime, they'll be going to the grazing land and they'll be doing all sort of activities, like cow were there in land and they were, all things were followed. But by the passage of time, due to the wild animals, they have given up all the agriculture practices. Like there are lot of wild hogs, we call jungli suar there. So they destroy all the crops, and since it's a kind of terrace farming, so the whole ecosystem is being disturbed over there. If you can enlighten in this regard, Puji, it will be very helpful.
See, here also, as we told, all the species that is there in your farm, whether you know or whether you don't know, which we do not know, we call it wild animals, because you are not actually, we feel that we are not. Actually, they are also a being in the ecosystem that you are managing. So that is since even I have got in my property, which we are managing also, there are wild boar and all coming. Even porcupine comes and eats, and if you don't take the coconut on time, they eat the coconut. So many things are happening, but then we need to plan in such a way that they should also have their space. See, that is the full planning that has to come, because we have a context. We know the context that we have to behave in a human way to them. First of all, they damaged the crop is the way we see them. That what they did is a damage. That shouldn't be there. We should include them also in the biodiversity. That is a change in mindset only. It needs some time. It's not that as easy, because changing the mindset is a big problem. But I am happy. See, they gave birth to 5 goats in my property only. I know where they delivered. I am accepting it. They are not damaging. See, my neighbors, all the bananas that he has planted, they have destroyed. But they have not destroyed only 1 or 2 banana plants in my property. They have not destroyed, because I feel it is because there is biodiversity. So the cropping that they have done in the land that they manage might have been monocropping. So naturally, that is inviting them to the system. So we need to plan it in a different way. It needs a little time to understand, but I think in due course I will explain to you more. But the answer is we need to change the way we see them. Then the problem will be solved.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Now, Sudhir Prabhu can ask the question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu and Mataji, for that insightful presentation. I have two questions, Prabhu. The first one is related to rats. Generally, we see, be it in the crops or at houses, whenever the rats is a big problem, they cause a lot of damage to whatever the food we store. So how can we really see this wholesome picture, as you just mentioned to your previous answer, and during your presentation also, what are some benefits that we can see from rats? Actually, for me, it's difficult to understand.
Oh, very good. See, you should look at the hole that they have made on their property. They have made a super pathway for the roots to grow, for the water to seep in. How much money you will have to spend to make the hole that they dig for you in your cropland. So why it is happening is, that is again, I'm coming to the same point. There is a need to see the rat for its function. Why we are having the problem, I'll just give it in a short way. That is, just imagine you have 1 acre of land, and I'm giving you for rice, let it be rice that you're growing there, and your seeding rate may be 30 kg per acre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring 60 varieties, 60 species of plants, 60 all together comes to 30 kg. Instead of giving you one seed, 30 kg, I'm giving you 60 varieties, total to 30 kg, and I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to tell you to seed the way you want, whichever way you want. You want to do tilling or whatever it is I'm telling you, you do. What is the problem that you will face? The answer will be, Prabhuji, it is difficult to harvest. Natural, no? That is what you'll say, no? That what is the advantage of monocropping? Easy to harvest, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but when you throw it like this, you will say it is difficult to harvest. Who is saying that? This specific, highest birth, the human birth is supposed to be the highest birth, highest species that can come. Such a species is saying it is difficult to harvest. And how can an insect or a rat harvest it? The same difficulty that you will see to harvest, they will also see. That is, we have lost the biodiversity in our farming practices. We need to bring in that principle in our farming practice. I cannot tell you how you should do, but I can tell you the solution to that problem is, if you reinstate biodiversity in your farm, this problem will go. And we have now many things we are doing to harvest the rain. This rat is making a super good hole for you. And they are also doing predation of many things. See, another thing that we have to understand is, all over the world, when it rains, a lot of biomass comes up. Now, in the mineral cycle or recycling process, everything that is there has to be recycled. By whom? By all the species that is there residing on this planet. They have to recycle it. This poor rat is also recycling. What else is doing? You are also recycling. Every species in this the planet is recycling. And that process again adds on to the fertility, and the system goes on. That is the cycle, Jagat Chakra. That is how it functions. So what is missing in that particular farm is biodiversity. And once you understand biodiversity properly in the coming sessions, I think that will answer your question fully. But now start to think that, if we are finding it difficult to harvest, they will also find it difficult to harvest. That is, biodiversity, it needs some time to destroy. That is how powerful biodiversity is. Does it make sense, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. And my second question is related to Goshala, or the term that you used. The important point mentioned there was to take the cows to the farm In that way, how the farm gets replenished. One of the problems that I see here, especially in villages in India, is shortage of manpower. Most of the manpower are moving to towns and cities, looking out for higher wage kind of jobs. And for someone to really take interest in the cows, maintain them, and follow the principles that you're saying, it requires manpower, and there is a shortage. So what are your observations in regards to the challenges that you see, Prabhu, in this regard, taking the cows to the farm, and how can it be? Is there some other alternative if there is manpower shortage?
See, now we'll introduce you to a particular group of people. For them, one person can manage a lakh of cows. They are called herders. They are the ones who are supposed to take the cow. They will never say this problem to you. They will only ask for more cows. So what we are missing is the herders. That is what Varnashrama is. No, they have a role in the system, herders. So give that job to them. What is that they are doing now? They are unnecessarily going to the modern education and they are spoiling their life. Even we have tried many times to get one herder for the Agarwal farms. We couldn't get one. And when he came to the farm, he was very happy to lie outside only with the cows only. But we can't. After completing veterinary science degree or engineering degree, we may not find it. We may find it difficult to stay with them. But for the herder, it is in their blood. So find a herder. That will solve the problem. There is no shortage of land, and there is no shortage of labor with respect when you get the herder. They will manage lakhs.
Okay, Prabhu. Thanks.
Yes. So we have that community, Gujjar, Rabbari. They very easily manage. The hot sun, they will take the cows.
So then another question by Grace Raghunandan Prabhu. We can ask Prabhu. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, thank you for the wonderful session by you and Mataji Prabhu. It was very enlightening, and especially the difference we explained about function, utility, and human doing to human being. I mean, that is, I've never heard about these things earlier, but it was very nice. And my question is, like, we have seen that how much we have deviated from the Vedic teachings, how the cow should be treated, like they should not be tied in goshalas, they should be freely grazing. But coming to modern days, I would like to see how practically we can do this. Maybe in the coming sessions, we will see them practically. I will be looking forward to that. The farmer should be aware of all these things, but now I don't think farmers are aware of these principles. So how we can educate them in masses, because as a job doing person, we cannot do it ourselves, but the farmer should be doing these things. But when we tell these things to farmer, they will not show any interest. So how can we inspire them? Like, I'm facing this difficulty with my own farm. We have 10 acres of land, but our farmer, he does it, but he doesn't show any interest in whatever videos I share or whatever knowledge I share. So how can we inspire them with the small steps?
Yes, Prabhu. So the first thing is, now that you have attended this session, from now on, don't say Goshala. Goshala is a different thing that we will be teaching you. Is what we see now is Go Shauchalaya.
Go Shauchalaya.
Now don't use Goshala here, because that's a totally different thing. Same as for city, no. If today is what we see city, then what was where Krishna was living? Prabhu?
Vrindavan.
Not like Vrindavan.
Braj.
No, city.
Mathura.
Mathura, the other one, main, final.
Dwarka.
So then what was Dwarka then? If we call city, then what was Dwarka? It is not city. Dwarka was a place where there was clean air, clean water and all. The place where you go don't get clean air, clean water, that is called a slum. So then there is a difference between slum and city. What we are living today is in slum. City is a different thing. That is Mathura or Big Dwaraka. So that is a totally different thing. So like the same thing you have, Goshala and Go Shauchalaya are totally different. Goshala is a different picture. You are going to see it. Then the other thing is, as Mahatma Gandhi told, be the change you want to see in others. We have to do it. There is no point in being in a city and tell them to do it this way. We have to be there. At least be with them when they do. Because, first of all, if we have understood the principles, then what is the difficulty? Why can't we follow it? See, when a company comes and tells that this has proteins and that will improve your calf muscles, we are taking it now. Because we have faith in the protein paradigm. We are not looking, any person who has not even taken that particular Horlicks is showing the advertisement and we are believing in it. So if these principles you have understood and if you believe it, be the change first, Prabhu. If you have learned, start practicing it in your land. Prabhu, in Bhagavad Gita it is told, as the leaders show, the others will follow. You be the leader, Prabhu. Others will follow. Don't worry.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. And one more question is, out of curiosity, the example Mataji showed about the monkey example, is it imaginary or is it a real experiment done?
Yes, no. See, that is the way to explain to you how a paradigm comes. See, that is how we are made to believe. It's like, fertilizer is needed. That is, we are made to believe. By whom? By the scientist. In common sense tells us, no, Purnamadam, Purnamidam means the resource is provided at the site. Why do you need a fertilizer? If the cow can walk to your property and pass dung and urine, why do you need a tractor to transport it? So that is the paradigm we test. Tractor is needed to shift the dung from your Goshala to there. That is, you need a tractor. That is the paradigm that is. You need an input. But the cows, they will come there and pass stool and urine. No? What's the problem? So that is a way of explaining that thing. See, the first group, they showered the water and made them think that you shouldn't eat. The second group, they didn't even shower the water. Like, Prabhu, many beliefs that we have now, like cashew nut. We have been made to believe cashew nut is a very good source of protein and eat cashew nut. But actually, if you really know how that nut is taken, it's a big ugra karma to get the nut out of that shell. It is totally destructive to the environment. Above the nut, you have the fruit. Yes. We have been, from years, we have been eating the nut and discarding the fruit. Actually, that fruit is what we have to eat. It's a paradigm shift, no? If you want to go and eat the fruit and discard the nut. Nut is the seed.
Yeah.
If you know how it is being taken out of, the nut is taken out of it, it is the damage that it happens to the people who is doing it and to the environment. The fume that comes out from the cashew nut factory, Prabhu, it is much more than a dust storm. It is like tying your eyes. You cannot see.
Wow.
That much damage is there. Why? We are made to believe nut is what we have to eat. Then what is the fruit? So it's a paradigm shift. That is how we have been made to believe.
Yeah.
We are not questioning. We forgot that the function of the cow is to graze. If any person you ask in the classroom, we are taught cow gives us milk. But for whom it is not told. The sentence ends there. Cows gives us milk. Full stop. That is the paradigm. So the child is understanding it is for me. Yeah. So cows gives us milk. That's a paradigm that has been put in our minds. But what is that milk that the cow is giving that we understood from that slogan? It is giving us religious principles.
Yeah.
That is why the milk will give us. And that religious principles means that milk can give religious principles only if the grazing cow is being nursed by the calf and there is excess milk.
Correct.
That is the peak, first and the Vedic indicator of quality of life. That means at that time, there was excess milk from the cow even after the cow was living with the calf.
Right.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yes.
Thank you.
So now I request Sanju Kumar Prabhu to ask the question. Hare Krishna, Sanju Kumar, Shiruguppi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandat Pranam. Yes, Prabhu. What's the question?
Yeah. Then I will. I don't know. Somehow he raised hand again. Okay. Then I will go ahead with another Prabhu. He is Hitarth Prabhu. Prabhu, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam.
Prabhuji, whenever I tell people to keep a calf with cows and keep mother cow with motherland, so there are two questions arises. That one is, if we keep calf with the cow, then what we will drink? Because calf will drink all the milk, or there another argument is that calf will get sick, calf will have blood in their urine or dung, and so these are the arguments I hear from them. And when we keep mother cow with motherland, then what we will eat? Because then we will not have land to grow crops, seasonal crops. So these are two arguments I hear from them. So what would be your answer?
Prabhuji, in the remaining part of a session, there is a session on milk, and there is a session on integrating cows in the croplands. I think by that time this answer will be meant to you. So it is better if you speak now. I think people will not understand it better, because you have already attended this session, so you will be able to understand more. But if I give that answer now, then many more doubts will come because of the answer I gave you. So
yes.
It is better.
We request the participants only to ask for the today's topic.
Yeah, because your question, Prabhuji, I will answer the question, but please give me the time on that particular day, because that session will cover this. Hope it is okay with you. Okay,
yes,
Prabhu?
yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, and the another question from Mahipal Govind Prabhu. Yeah, please go ahead, Prabhu, with your question.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
This is Mahipal Govind from Mumbai. So when we are discussing about these cows, so these days there are lots of debates with respect to having an indigenous cow or a foreign breed cow. So particularly if I talk about my village in Bihar, so mostly people have replaced their indigenous cows with the Jersey breed, and moreover people have even replaced their cows with the buffaloes. And the functions of the cows, which you have been talking, that they should be sent for grazing. So in my village I have seen buffaloes doing the same thing, moving in the farms, and urine and dung of the buffaloes, and moreover of the Jersey cows. So does that have the same utility or the benefits? If you can highlight.
See, whichever animal that you are livestock, whichever one which you are growing, rearing, it has a function is there, no? Whether it is a buffalo, whether it is a cow, whether it is a Jersey cow or an Indian cow, their function is to graze. So the question, it is whether if the question is the dung of the Deshi and the dung of the Videshi is the same, then there is naturally the native one is specific for that area. There will be an upper hand in the quality of dung that the native one gives. That is always there. So that is there. But regarding the Videshi and the Deshi cows, I think that will be dealt in the cow class, which I think that is the better time to hear that. But the other thing is, always the Deshi is superior to that particular area. And we should know why the Videshi came there. It is for the utility of it. It was not for the function. So there will be an unintended consequence for that. No. So that means it will not be the superior dung that the local cow can give. That is there. But more on the Deshi and Videshi, I think that will be dealt in the cow class.
Okay. And with respect to the buffalo thing, if people replace it?
No. If that buffalo is local to that area, there is nothing wrong in it.
No.
Is it local to that area? Or is it imported?
No, the local buffaloes.
Then it is suited to that area. No? What is wrong?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we have a last question from Sanju Kumar. He just came back. And Prabhu, please go ahead with your question quickly. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sanju Kumar, Prabhu, again, we are unable to hear you. No. Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
So, yes, because time is just running up.
Yes.
Thank you very much for all the participants for attending the today's session. And I would like to share once again that again the upcoming session will be on upcoming session will be on again on 8th May. 8th May, the topic will be the functions of plants, and on 9th May, that is functions of landscape. Okay, so again, if you have any doubts regarding to this session, you can directly write to any of our speakers, addressing their name to this email ID, help@dirttosoil.org. And related to the sessions and the future seminars, which are, of course, in very soon, we are also organizing in local language like Hindi, Telugu, and a few other regional languages. We are planning it out. We will announce in the groups. You can write regarding to any kind of questions about the upcoming programs and any other things to holistic.cowcare@gmail.com. And also, so many other participants are inquiring about the WhatsApp group for this session. So definitely we'll be creating a WhatsApp group for this group very shortly. But for as of now, we are broadcasting the updates. As soon as the course finished, we will add them into that group. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you very much. Sarve jana sukhino bhavantu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.